be interesting to think about doing something like, imagine it's like Broforce, where you constantly kill each other all the time.
So again, let's write our core tenets, like what we want to accomplish, because
because I completely forgot about time stopping. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to do that either if we don't want to.
So to me, I'll be honest, time moves when you move feels really derivative.
Yeah. It's just like
super hot.
Super hot.
And it's not that super hot did it first or did it best, but I do think that my mind, when I think of
it's hard to get
time
out of
moves
that.
when you move, I just can't not think about super hot. Mm-hmm.
So say we only have a month to build this. That's a pretty big constraint, considering that we're only doing this a couple weekends. And here and there. Also, if we say that there's also game constraints. So we say that this is going to be only a desktop game. This is only going to be a mobile game. You also say, well, the constraint of it being 3D or 2D has a lot of implications. So making those decisions first.
I like the idea of just going simple and saying desktop with controller and mouse and keyboard as the two different playing options would be good enough.
I think just mouse and keyboard is good enough. I don't think that we need the controller yet. Because that's how, that just like responsive design is a whole nother
thing
that we need to get into. I know it's easier with Unity, but again, we constrain it first, and then we can add on to it later if we release it and decide we're passionate about it. I think that the 3D idea would be really cool. I think that maybe just like more constraints. If we do a 3D game where you can place down turrets, and they can look stupid, we don't have to think about
them. Like spheres.
Yeah.
That shoot spheres.
Yeah. Or we can just literally take some Portal models, assets.
Actually, that or TF2. All of the different turrets are just different turrets from different games.
Yeah. So let's say 3D, you have a player, you can place down a turret, and then there's baddies that come in, and you try to have the turret shoot them down. And so maybe the game is as simple as, okay, you're in this room that's constrained, you can't get out until all the baddies are killed, and maybe there's waves or however you want to do it. Maybe there's no waves, maybe there's a story. There's a box, and then you are running around this box, kind of like the Guardian scenario, the shrine in Breath of the Wild. And then there's all these baddies spawning, and you can place down turrets, and maybe you only get a select amount of turrets every round or something like that. You can place them down, and then maybe there's different types of turrets. Yeah. But in the beginning, I think that we constrain ourselves to have maybe 2 different types of turrets, 1 or 2. Yeah. And then maybe have a couple different mobs, maybe like 3. I think getting as far as you can is a cool idea. Yeah. But honestly, just like the game that we made last time, HD, that isn't enough, I think, most of the time.
Boring.
I think the upgrade system does work.
Yeah.
So you have to make it not just like Flappy Bird, but make it feel like you're progressing.
You mentioned only having a select number of turrets per round, and I think it actually is cooler to be able to allow the player to spawn literally as many as they want, because then that provides that balance of the more that you spawn, easier it will be to kill the other enemies, but it will also be easier for you to die, because those turrets will also kill you. So if you're like spawning 1 million projectiles, yeah, you'll really win the round because everybody will be dead, but so will you. So I think that's kind of a good trade-off.
So you're saying that don't limit how many you can do, make it
the player's limit.
Make it consequential.
Yes.
Like if you spawn a ton, you're gonna die.
Yep, exactly.
So it's up to their discretion.
Yeah. So if the player's really good at dodging, then they can just go ham and spawn like 1 million or like
that's kind of cool.
15 of them.
That would need to be playtested though, for sure. Because say they spawn, and then maybe our turrets suck. Oh, but again, our one of our constraints or not principles necessarily, but game design mechanics is that the turrets will always follow you, right? Because that's a really important thing. Are we saying the turrets are gonna follow you, or because that can be part of the lore too? Say you're kind of like Portal. You're in this chamber or bad area, and maybe even a temple. We can decide the theme later. Yeah. But you're in this area that's hostile, and then you're picking up these turrets as weapons, or whatever, and you're putting them into like a docile state, but as soon as you let them out again, say maybe when they're close to you they can't attack you, but as soon as they're far away from your body, then they have the ability to aim at you. So say you're collecting all of them. But as soon as you put it down, it tries to aim at you. But then you're trying to be smart about the situation and have it attack the real bad guys. Maybe at the end of the round or the end of the game or whatever, you have to go up to the turrets and like defuse them or something, or turn them off.
I also like the idea of maybe there are like some sort of aliens that are different biological forms than us, and so we only have the technology to seek and kill life forms like us, and so like the people who use those turrets have to be like almost suicidal in order to have those weapons target these other baddies, the aliens. Or something, or zombies, or
well, what if they're in a situation though, like I was talking about, where
they're trapped
and they have to get out? They're trying to kill everything. They're trying to use their brains in the situation that they got.
I kind of like I'm a big fan of the portal kind of thingy.
Also,
like,
I don't think it has to be. This is something that I've heard a lot. I don't think it has to be super logical about why you're doing things in the game. It doesn't have to make a lot of sense either. Realistically or anything. Sometimes it helps, but if it's fun, that's the thing that matters. That's really hard to define. But
I like the.
We can have the game just spawn a bunch of heralds.
I actually kind of like the idea of a game where you just kill my dog over. Courtney and I watched a terrible YouTube video yesterday about a guy who adopted a squirrel and then was trying to nurse it. Like adopted a baby squirrel and tried to nurse it to life and it died.
I was thinking laser turrets is what was in my head.
Laser light,
but it could be,
and then it stops and then it cools down.
Yeah, just like the Guardians in Breath of the Wild. It would just be one burst, and then it would charge up again with one burst. But I think that if it depends on the theme too. If you want to make the box generic, then laser makes sense. If you want to make the box or the cage or whatever not just more Indiana Jones jungle. Then we could do machine gun turrets. That'd be kind of cool. Just like Risk of Rain, I was thinking stupid baddies, but there's just a lot of them. And so if you get in the middle of that mosh of them, then you're gonna get hurt easily, and it's hard to get out. I think if we're gonna make this a full game, it would be really cool to have sort of a Binding of Isaac. I don't know if actually Binding of Isaac has it doesn't really have in between stages. It's more of like you just go to the next room, but then you're fighting new things.
There's just a sad memory.
So I think it'd be kind of cool to have something where there's in between, sort of like Portal, where you have there's these chambers that you're going into, and they might be different themes. But you're going through a channel or whatever, and you learn something about so there's a story. You learn something about the game. Or why this place exists or whatever.
What if it was Nazis? Spiders.
You can make the game stupid too.
Spiders, snakes, Indians. Just kidding. Bears would be good, little guys. I like the idea of chambers, like you were saying, with some sort of like connecting tissue. It would be interesting to have, if you have like a cave system, like say Minecraft or something. There's also the balance of how safe do you play it. Like you can, if you were good enough, you could just run through all of the monsters and just dodge all of them and never try to kill any of them and get to the end. Or you can, blast your way through the whole cave system with a million turrets and, stay behind them and play it safe. But that's the only thing with the tunnel thing. You kind of have to be dropped into the middle of something in order for the turrets to really be beneficial, or you have to have enemies coming from all sides.
Literally just thinking a box. You're in this chamber that is square or somewhat square, and you're just, it could be round, it could be square, but it's big enough where, just like the shrine where you attack, you have this thing that you're fighting the guardian with. There's a bunch of baddies in there, and maybe there is a threshold that's just too much, like you can't move around them. But I was literally thinking they would just like kind of all clump together. Because they all have the same pathfinding algorithm, so they're just wherever they are, they're just going toward you. So eventually, if you're walking around, they're just going to all clump together.
Everything is just targeting the player.
And actually, this would it doesn't have to be 3D. I think the 3D would be way more immersive, and you'd feel like shit. You know? But The 2D would also be fun, but it would just have to be more, and we have to have like more upgrades and stuff. So I think the 3D would be a fun thing to try. Maybe there's a couple items that are always available, or maybe they spawn in the chamber, or they're just available in the chamber when you get there.
Yeah.
That are different, and you have to use them differently. So maybe there's a turret that does the same thing. Then maybe there's a spike or something that holds a baddie in place.
What if instead of controlling time, you could freeze enemies in place?
Like with a spike?
Like with stasis, like from Breath of the Wild. I was thinking, and I think you were thinking as well, of like the instance where, okay,
But again,
rectangle is turret, and the player is here, and the baddies are over here, and they're coming toward him here, and then the player is running this way, the turret is spinning this way as well, its field of view is spinning, and it's firing at the player's moving faster than, and then the bullets are hitting all of these as they're coming toward him, kind of. We could slow down time to make it easier for the player to dodge these things, but the bullets are still flying past them and hitting.
I think that's way too complicated for players to understand, and also, I think you're trying to work in the time thing.
What I was trying to say is I wanted to rephrase that. So this is what I think the idea was with the slowing down time mechanism. What if instead you were able to basically like do some sort of area of effect stasis thing where that you keep running and the enemies are frozen in place and cannot chase you anymore? Kind of.
I think the obstacles kind of make sense to do the same thing.
Like still just you place down something to benefit you, like spike strips?
Yeah, something like, I don't know.
Okay.
So right now, the only way for you to win, to have all the baddies be killed, is to place a turret down. So that's another constraint we have to think about. You can place as many as you want, like we were talking about, or you can only place one, and you just have to move around. I think that as many as you want kind of makes sense, and it'd be kind of fun to explore that. I have no idea if that's fun or not. Like the game loop right now is you just run around. Like you place the turret down and then you run around.
Yeah.
And then the turret's aiming at you.
Yeah.
And I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Because if you have this constant battle in your head. Okay, do I place a turret here? Because like if I place a turret here and there's one over here, I'm gonna get shot.
Yeah.
And the baddies are right here, so I need to hide behind them. That's kind of fun. Like you have to chase them, but not get hit by them. But also place a turret down, but not get hit by that.
Yeah.
I think that's fun. That's fun, and also
that's a cool idea.
And then we build that, and then we can add all the other stuff later, like the different types of turrets or slow down mechanisms.
Taking this idea out a little bit farther, I like the idea of placing a turret right where you are, kind of like Bomberman. You place a bomb, you have to get away from it as soon as you can, otherwise it'll kill you. That's kind of cool. I also kind of like the idea of having like a Pokeball, and you throw it and it bounces kind of unpredictably, and you have to find, like, maybe you throw it straight down and it like hits the ground, and then it immediately is like, okay, there's a turret there, and it shoots you and you die. Or you can throw it over behind the enemies, and it might come back, like it might bounce off the walls a couple of times, hit the ground, and then land, and then immediately turn toward you and be shooting from behind them. That might be cool.
Well, that's what I think. Another thing we have to think about is, are they directional or do they just aim where?
Do they swivel on 360? I don't know.
I think that 180 or 360. I think that 360 makes sense in the beginning. Also think that.
But also,
what you're talking about is just a addition to the main game loop.
Yeah.
So like one thing you have to think about is that there could be friction with the if it's a laser though, it depends on the theme, right? If it's a laser, I don't think it's gonna hit the wall. If it's a bullet, it's probably gonna do the same thing. If it's something else, then it might not. It might actually have air drag, and then fall.
Yeah, it'd be cool to do grenades too, but
grenades or
that'd be pretty sweet.
something really cheesy like catapults.
That would be fucking cool. That would be lit.
Or
crossbows. Chivalry. It's
cannons,
medieval turrets.
Cannonballs.
That'd be
coconut cannonballs.
I like the idea of these like random ass things.
We can do that, but the thing is, like, we have to think about the core game loop first, and then we can add.
Yeah.
And then a theme, I think, would be important too, based on what makes sense. if it doesn't make sense, but it's just something we want to try that's really fun and stupid,
Yeah.
like the catapult thing, I think it would be fun to do.
There's a non-piercing one and a piercing one.
Okay.
And then we can balance those as we want to. So that the laser beam doesn't fire 100% of the time, or it moves slower, or has a smaller angle of detection or something like that. But what I'm trying to say is there's one where the player can run behind enemies and is safe. The enemies are a wall and keep them safe as long as the enemies are between the turret and the player.
Okay.
Then there's another one where the player is not safe by hiding behind enemies. There's a piercing one, and then we constrain those based on that. The only thing, like the easiest way to really think about that in a less abstract sense is like machine gun turret versus laser turret.
So, for example, if you have the piercing turret or piercing bullet, that sounds like the worst thing you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So maybe if we are going with that, we say that the piercing turret is you have an unlimited amount of those. So they're dangerous, but you always have them. And then maybe the ones that don't pierce, those are.
Oh wait.
Okay.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
Those are limited.
The ones like the machine gun turrets that don't pierce enemies.
The ones that
not
don't.
effective in killing them, or it's bad in the sense that
No, they're probably about the
easily
same
kill them.
damage. They're probably about the same damage, but one is just is likely to, if you're hiding behind the baddie, it can hit you too. The other one is you have a turret that it doesn't pierce baddies, but you have limited supply.
Yeah.
So you can use those, but maybe it runs out of bullets,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you only have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those are also, it's complicating things, and I think it's going to be it's a good idea. I don't know if we want to put that in just yet until we get the core thing first. Some things we don't know. We don't know if the baddies are going to be fun enough. We don't know if we want to make them those more interesting. We don't really know what we want to enhance yet.
Yeah.
Because I think that the baddies are not going to be super interesting in the beginning. We might need more variety. We might need them to be faster, or more of them, or make the chambers more interesting. We don't really know what we're going to do.
Are we gonna have elevation changes?
Yeah, that's another question. I was thinking flat. I think elevation changes would be cool. I honestly think that just not a square chamber, but sort of a cave-like chamber, like you were talking about, would be really cool. Yeah, because the piercing and the non-piercing bullets, that I see what you're saying, that is a core thing, but we don't know it yet if it's just adding more complexity to something that's already way too complex or way too hard. I don't know if it's easier or hard yet. Just having a turret and the baddies. So
Yeah, I think there has to be some sort of variety in the player's ability to move to make it interesting. Because then the player's making decisions in the moment of being able to dodge or something to just get out of the way in time of something.
So we could have obstacles in the chamber that the player has to avoid, but they could also use. I'm trying to think of that. What is the bare minimum to make it more interesting and more fun that adds to the core idea of everything being hostile, and then you have control over a hostile thing, the turret. So I think that the simplest thing, your idea was the piercing bullets and the non-piercing bullets, which I think would also be really cool and interesting. And also the piercing bullet thing, I was talking about adding obstacles in the chamber.
Yeah.
I think if we added a piercing bullet mechanic to the turret, so when you place down a turret, the bullet can pierce you. That also adds an obstacle in a way, because you have to know that, okay, the turret you place down here is a piercing one, and so if it's firing at you and a baddie, you have to make sure to dodge that bullet that's going to come out the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus another turret that is not doing that.
You can just stay behind a wall of enemies, and as long as they're between you and the turret, then you're safe.
So I think that would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then I don't think that's hopefully not too difficult to. The only thing is, I don't want to think in terms of Unity physics yet, but we have to make sure that it actually goes through.
You can do a line cast that's definitely piercing.
Okay,
Almost
cool.
positive. Yeah. Almost positive. Not completely.
Yeah, because I think the default.
Really
I'm pretty sure the default mechanic is to collide and then
Yeah.
send the vector off somewhere else. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but anyways,
that kind of makes sense. But
we could turn off that. That's actually kind of cool. And then maybe we decide that okay, this is still too easy, or it's really difficult. I mean, to modulate some things.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be difficult enough that it would be fun.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be. I'm trying to imagine it now. I think that having like another turret over here. So I think that 2 is alone is going to be difficult unless the firing rate was really slow.
Yeah.
So say there's another turret over here that looks a little bit different. Say it's shaded in, or I think a different shape would be nicer. But this is non-piercing.
Yeah.
And so it just hits the baddie and he dies.
Yeah.
This alone is really difficult unless these are firing really slow. So maybe another thing we should say is the bullets are slow moving, or at least slower than we think a bullet would go.
All of the turrets have some sort of telegraphing to show
Where it's
where
gonna
they're
shoot.
aiming.
Yeah,
And so every turret can have a basic laser that's like a laser sight that's being emitted that shows exactly where the barrel is pointing. And so if it's a non-piercing bullet, then the laser will stop at an enemy and just continue to track
Oh, you know, it'd be kind of cool.
But
Yeah.
it will stop at a wall or an enemy or whatever.
Yeah.
The piercing ones will be slightly different in their color or, whatever
Yeah.
shape.
Yeah.
And those like guiding lasers will pierce through everything, if that makes sense.
I think that having the yeah, it does make sense. I think that having the sight is really important, and I think that maybe we
Yeah.
could change the color of the sights or the feel of the sight so that maybe even your viewfinder or something, or there's a little notification on the screen on your HUD that says piercing laser or non-piercing laser or something like that, or maybe there's just a visual thing on the baddies
I
or
think
whatever.
I think the player would learn that. I don't think that there's a.
Yeah, but it has to be obvious or not obvious. I guess obvious enough that something bad is about to happen. You need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Visually and seeing it. So, but I think this mechanic is really cool. And what's nice about this too is that we don't have to think about a bunch of obstacles in the scene that we have to add to make it interesting.
Yeah.
It's just 2 different types of turrets with 2 different behaviors that the player has control over and they can place in the scene, but they have to react differently too.
Yeah. If we put the player in a box right now for the prototype, we'll definitely get the core game mechanic done.
Right.
But I do feel like it'll turn into player runs around in circles.
Yeah, and
Dodge everything.
that's what I was talking about. Is that
Need some variety somehow.
well, the
But we can figure
variety.
it out later.
I'm pretty sure that the variety is going to be where do you place the turret? So where do you place the turret, and how does that affect how you move? I think it would be kind of cool, to have maybe another thing that we could add but we don't really know if we have to yet. I think we do though is at least 2 different types of baddies, one that's like slow moving, another fast moving.
Yeah.
But not sure yet. It'd also be kind of cool to have other things in the scene that allow you to block the laser. So even if it hits you, you're okay. So maybe you can pick up a shield or something. I'm not really sure how, because we're doing lasers, so it sounds like we're doing something that's a little bit futuristic-ish. I don't know. That'd be actually kind of
Could be
cool.
a javelin though.
That would be kind of cool to have a mirror that would reflect off of you and hit baddie or something.
That would be cool. But also, if we didn't want to go with the laser vibe, you can also think of like a harpoon or javelin or something as the piercing one, for example.
Oh, from the turret, from the
If you
catapult
wanted
or
to
something?
change the aesthetic of the actual,
That'd be super
like,
cool,
you
actually,
just have
yeah.
like a piercing harpoon.
Yeah. The problem about doing something like that is it's an art direction that you and I don't have the talent for it yet.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really cool.
Yeah, I think
Honestly, it would be really cheesy to have a harpoon, but then have everything else be blocks.
Yeah.
A laser makes sense though.
a nice little asset.
Yeah.
A harpoon with the.
So it doesn't really fit into the vibe, and it feels really cheesy.
Yeah.
It takes you out of it.
I think that's gonna take a month.
I
us.
agree. Yeah, and then at that point too, if we decide that okay, this is too much, or this is not fun, and we're not talented enough, or something. If we're not even passionate about it after these 4 weeks, then we can just drop it. But if we really like this idea and we're excited about it, then we can continue on to B1. Thinking about where this should go, I think it should be on the website, so that we can share it to
Share it more easily.
our friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the
To
demo.
the Unity player.
I think the demo could totally be a web game.
Yeah.
Because it won't have
Send
a
the
lot
link
of
to our
assets.
friends if we really like it. Send the link to our friends. They could just
Yeah.
go to the website on their computer and then play it right there.
But I was kind of brainstorming about how I make all of the sound effects using the piano. Like with the gun being a choke string that I'm hitting, and then like knocking on the thing, and then maybe like hitting the metal like frame with like a stick or something, and then mashing those together to make some sort of like report kind of bullet sound.
That would be kind of cool. Also, the piano, using some like the lower register for intense, you're in a chamber type of music.
Yeah.
Say that the game starts, you're in a position and you have to walk out into the chamber, something shuts behind you or whatever, and then or something.
Yeah, I'm cool
It'd be fun.
with messing around with that. It makes me sad that this could be done in 1 week if you're working full time on it.
Yeah.
Like that could easily be done in 80 engineer hours, provided we knew what we were doing. That probably will take 2 weeks of full time work for us, I think.